Science doesn't have an explanation for everything, and most scientists would be the first to admit it. Testing, experimenting, and forming theories are all part of the process, but they don't always lead to a clear answer. Sometimes we simply have to accept that certain things remain unknown or are far too strange to explain. And honestly, that's not a bad thing. That's the best part. It proves the ancient world still has plenty of mysteries left for us to unravel. So let's take a look at these baffling ancient finds and see just how much of the past we still don't understand. Number 15. The Tomio Maruyama kofun discovery. For years, Tomio Maruyama was already famous as Japan's largest circular kofun burial mound, but 2023 gave archaeologists another reason to talk about it. Work at the late 4th century tomb discovered a burial unlike anything previously recorded there. Beside an enormous coffin, measuring over 16 feet long, researchers found two objects that immediately changed the importance of the excavation: a huge bronze mirror and an iron sword stretching more than 7 feet. The mirror was especially unusual. Large ceremonial mirrors are familiar from elite burials in ancient China, yet Japan had never produced one quite like this. Its shield-shaped body carries intricate patterns related to the Daryukyō style known from the Kofun period, leading researchers to call it the Daryumon shield-shaped bronze mirror. The sword, meanwhile, was far too large for ordinary combat and probably served a ceremonial purpose. Whoever received such great grave goods clearly mattered. But their identity has not survived with them. Number 14. Tutankhamun's two mummified daughters. King Tut was barely an adult when he died. But inside his famous tomb rested a heartbreaking reminder that he had already become a father. Howard Carter's team found two tiny coffins there in 1922. Each containing a mummified baby girl believed to be the pharaoh's daughter. Their personal names never survived. Coffin inscriptions simply described them as the Osiris, a term linked with the deceased, so researchers labeled them 317A and 317B. Their mom was probably Tutankhamun's wife, Ankhesenamun, possibly the woman represented by mummy KV-21A. The younger child had been delivered after only 5 or 6 months of pregnancy, while her sister reached approximately full term. Examinations have raised questions about unusual physical features, with conditions including spina bifida and Sprengel deformity proposed over the years, although neither diagnosis has been established with certainty. Even modern testing has failed to settle how either girl died. Their father became archaeology's most famous young king. His daughters remain two unnamed children whose brief lives left almost no story behind. Number 13. The Slipernor of Gantofta. So many generations passed the sandstone outcrop near Gantofta, without realizing its long grooves might hold a story far stranger than simple tool sharpening. That was the traditional explanation. People had dragged knives and axes across the rock, gradually cutting hundreds of marks into its surface. Closer study has made that answer less comfortable. Several grooves have a smooth, concave shape that seems difficult to produce by sharpening alone. Experts have suggested a repeated swinging or rotating movement, perhaps involving something working almost like a wheel or pendulum. If so, whoever made these lines was following a deliberate method rather than casually maintaining tools. Their purpose is where certainty disappears. Swedish researchers have considered ritual, magical, or religious activity, especially because the carvings overlook the Arn River Valley. The pitted ware culture occupied this region around 5,000 years ago, although connecting them directly with the grooves remains difficult. Human faces are sometimes claimed among the markings as well, likely pareidolia. Number 12. Venus calendars of Greece. Those clay frying pans scattered across prehistoric Aegean graves have caused arguments for decades, mostly because they do not behave like frying pans at all. Their decorated surfaces, shallow bodies, and elaborate handles suggest something far removed from cooking. One unusual proposal gave them an even stranger purpose: tracking pregnancy through the movements of Venus. Research published in 2013 explored whether patterns carved onto certain artifacts could relate to astronomical cycles and the length of human gestation. Venus spends long periods appearing alternately as a morning and evening star, and researchers noticed numerical relationships that might have helped prehistoric communities mark time around pregnancy. It is an intriguing possibility rather than a settled archaeological fact, and other interpretations remain on the table. The objects may have carried ritual, maritime, fertility, or celestial meaning. Still, picturing someone 6,000 years ago watching Venus to count the months before a child arrived gives these strange clay pieces a personal side that museum labels rarely capture. Number 11. The sarcophagus of Yaroslav the Wise. Yaroslav the Wise was supposed to be resting inside St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev. His big marble sarcophagus is still there, but the ruler himself is not. Yaroslav helped shape medieval Kiev and is remembered for supporting learning, law, and culture, including the establishment of an important library at the cathedral. His burial chest survived centuries of turmoil remarkably well. Wars, attacks, repairs, and major reconstruction changed much of St. Sophia between the medieval period and the 1700s, while the sarcophagus remained largely untouched. At some point, however, the remains believed to be Yaroslav's disappeared. One theory holds that they were removed during the chaos of the Second World War and carried away as Kiev changed hands. Where they went afterward has never been firmly established. Even later examinations of the tomb produced further questions about the remains associated with it. Today, St. Sophia functions primarily as a historic museum complex, and Yaroslav's stone coffin still occupies its place. The strangest absence is the man it was meant to protect. Number 10. The Tassili mushroom figure. This strange human figure, painted thousands of years ago in Algeria's Sahara, has inspired one of archaeology's more unusual debates. Tassili Niger contains a huge collection of prehistoric rock art, first brought to wider attention during the early 20th century and explored further in later decades. Among those paintings is a peculiar image often called the Tassili mushroom figure. The person appears surrounded by mushroom-like forms, with shapes seemingly held close to the body. Some experts have interpreted the scene as a shaman taking hallucinogenic mushrooms during a ceremony. Should that reading be correct, the painting could represent extraordinarily early evidence of humans using psychoactive fungi, possibly during Neolithic times. There is no written explanation beside the artwork, though, and interpreting prehistoric symbolism across thousands of years is never simple. What looks obvious to modern eyes may have carried an entirely different meaning for its painter. Even so, the image remains difficult to forget. Number 9. The ancient anatomical machines. There is something strange about the two figures kept beneath Cappella San Severo in Naples. They are known as the anatomical machines, a man and a woman reduced to skeletons, yet surrounded by an incredibly detailed web of arteries and veins. Raimondo di Sangro, Prince of San Severo, commissioned them during the 1700s, and his strange reputation made their story even darker. Rumors claimed he had injected two servants with a secret liquid that turned their blood vessels solid. That tale survived for generations because nobody could explain what visitors were seeing. Later research finally revealed that much of the circulatory system was handmade using wire, wax, and other materials. Still, that hardly makes the figures ordinary. Their makers reproduced tiny vessels with remarkable detail at a time when anatomy was far less understood. We know more about their construction today, but the skill behind them and the reason Di Sangro wanted something so disturbingly realistic still feels strangely difficult to explain. Number 8. The Orbano Monte World Map. Well, It's a common fact, Orbano Monte never traveled to Japan, but in 1587 he drew details of the country that other European maps of his age simply did not contain. The Milanese aristocrat had an obvious fascination with geography, but the scale of his work went far beyond an ordinary map. 60 separate sheets formed a circular world chart covering roughly 27 square feet when assembled. Stranger still, Monte placed the North Pole at the center, presenting Earth through a viewpoint that feels remarkably modern for the late 16th century. His geography was not flawless. Japan, for example, runs east to west instead of north to south, yet its place names and several locations show knowledge rarely available to Western mapmakers of his period. Monte apparently never saw those lands himself, leaving historians to wonder which travelers, manuscripts, or forgotten sources supplied his information. Even his choice of perspective feels unusually ambitious, almost as though Earth were being observed from far above the Arctic. The map survives, the trail behind Monte's knowledge does not. Number 7. Herodium began with a king who wanted an entire hill to carry his name. Herod the Great chose a site in the Judean desert and transformed it into a huge palace and fortress, reshaping the hill until it towered above everything around it. Inside were towers, bathhouses, courtyards, decorated rooms, and enough luxury to make the place feel less like a military stronghold and more like a royal statement. Yet Herod apparently wanted something else there as well: his grave. Ancient historian Josephus wrote that the king was buried at Herodium, turning the place into one enormous monument to himself. In 2007, archaeologist Ehud Netzer announced that he had found Herod's tomb, including pieces of an elaborate stone sarcophagus. But the identification has been questioned, leaving another uncertainty inside an already strange site. Herod built a hill meant to keep his memory alive. 2,000 years later, we still know the king, but even his final resting place refuses to give us a completely certain answer. Number 6. The Muisca calendar time meant something very different to the Muisca people of Colombia. Before the Spanish conquest shattered much of their culture, they followed a remarkably complicated lunisolar calendar built around several kinds of years rather than one. A common year contained 20 months of 30 days, with 20 carrying special importance because it matched the total number of fingers and toes. Rural years worked differently, lasting 12 months and staying closer to the changing seasons. Then came the strangest part: a sacred year stretching across 37 months. Historians have studied the system, yet the reason behind that unusual length remains uncertain. Pieces of Muisca timekeeping survived on ceremonial objects, textiles, flutes, the choch stone, and at the astronomical site of El Infiernito. Another fragment of the story is even harder to recover. At the beginning of a sacred cycle, the Muisca reportedly performed a ceremony remembered as the jumping toad. Its name survived, but whatever people actually did during the ritual was lost when so much of their world disappeared. Number 5. Maiden Tower of Baku has changed beyond recognition over the centuries. While the Maiden Tower has kept one stubborn secret, nobody can agree on what it was meant to be. Rising inside Azerbaijan's old walled city, the massive stone structure is usually linked to the 12th century, although parts of its lower masonry have encouraged theories of a much earlier beginning. That uncertainty has produced explanations ranging from defensive tower to Zoroastrian sanctuary to astronomical observatory. Even its unusual shape keeps the argument alive, particularly the long stone projection running beside its cylindrical body. Then there is the name. Local folklore tells of a princess who threw herself from the roof rather than accept a marriage forced upon her by her father. History offers little support for the tragedy, but Baku has carried the tale for generations. Perhaps that suits the tower perfectly. dates remain disputed. Its original purpose has slipped away. And even the story attached to its name belongs somewhere between memory and legend. Number 4. The Ranakpur Jain Temple 1 vision in 1389 supposedly gave Darna Shah a task large enough to consume much of his life. The wealthy Jain merchant was in Rajasthan when, according to tradition, he received divine inspiration for a temple unlike any other around him. Work eventually produced the magnificent Ranakpur Jain Temple, dedicated to Adinatha, the first Tirthankara of the present Jain cosmic cycle. Construction stretched across decades. A copper plate inscription indicates major work was completed by 1436, although other accounts suggest additions continued until 1496, long after Darna Shah's lifetime. The temple became one of Jainism's greatest architectural monuments, filled with smaller shrines and astonishing marble workmanship. Among its most memorable pieces is an image of Parshvanatha carved from a single marble slab and surrounded by more than 1,000 serpent heads. Each twists into the next with extraordinary precision, leaving barely any room for error. Centuries of improved tools have followed, yet reproducing such patient detail would still test a master stone carver. The vision became stone. How craftsmen achieved some of its finest work remains equally mesmerizing. Number 3. Yadri Bhuvanagiri. Nobody knows whose memory these two giant stones were supposed to preserve. Near Venkatapuram in India's Yadri Bhuvanagiri district, archaeologists identified a pair of ancient menhirs believed to be thousands of years old. One remains upright, reaching around 15 feet, while the second lies broken nearby. They may once have marked burials, which would fit other megalithic traditions found across the region. There is only one issue. No grave or human remains have been found beside them. Their surfaces are equally silent. Unlike later examples carrying carvings or symbols, these stones offer nothing that tells us who raised them or why this particular ground mattered. Perhaps the burials disappeared over centuries. Perhaps we have misunderstood their purpose altogether. Either way, moving stones of this size required planning, effort, and a reason important enough to bring people together. That reason vanished. The builders left no names behind, only two markers for something we no longer know how to remember. Number 2. The Duenos inscription 3 little joined vessels have kept scholars arguing over a few lines of Latin for well over a century. German archaeologist Heinrich Dressel found the object near Rome's Quirinal Hill in 1880, and its inscription quickly proved far more troublesome than its modest appearance suggested. Dating back roughly 2,700 years, the Duenos inscription ranks among the earliest surviving examples of Old Latin. Unfortunately, whoever scratched the message around the pottery gave future translators almost no help. Words run continuously without spaces, several letters are difficult to identify, and the language belongs to such an early stage of Latin that familiar rules do not always apply. Scholars have proposed more than 50 translations since its discovery, often producing meanings that differ dramatically from one another. None has one broad agreement. Suggestions range from a personal promise or marriage-related message to wording connected with the vessel's use. But every interpretation encounters weird problems. Number 1. Hilly Archaeological Park. 4,400 years have passed. Yet the Hilly Grand Tomb can still make its builders feel surprisingly close. The al-Nar community shaped carefully cut stone into a circular burial monument roughly 12 meters across, decorating its entrances with carvings that were clearly meant to matter. Oryx appears above one doorway, while human figures and other animals survive elsewhere around the structure. We can recognize every shape, but understanding the message behind them is another matter. Hilly belonged to a society connected through trade with distant parts of the ancient world, and its communal tombs suggest burial customs far richer than simple graves. Numerous individuals could be laid to rest inside these chambers, surrounded by objects that reveal a settled and organized community. Yet their symbols never came with explanations. That is what gives Hilly its pull. Their masons left us extraordinary workmanship and carefully chosen images, but whatever those animals and figures once communicated ended with the people who understood their language. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you soon in the next one.